If you live in the northern hemisphere, then you know it's wintertime. Let me tell you right now, I've been dreaming of spring and summer for weeks now. One of my favorite things to do in the summer months is to head down to the racetrack and watch cars drive in circles for a few hours. To all of my European viewers, it might not seem too exciting, but let me tell you, feeling that rumble and hearing those cars roar is worth it alone. But anyways, where am I going with this? Well, today we're going to be taking a look at Test Drive Eve of Destruction. It might not be the first or even the best Demolition Derby game, but it's the first one that I played and the first one that exposed me to this destructive motorsport. So grab your hot chocolate, marshmallows, bundle up, and strap in. This is Test Drive Eve of Destruction. Test Drive Eve of Destruction released August 25th, 2004 for Xbox, and on September 7th, 2004 for PlayStation 2. Usually in my videos, this is where I discuss the story, but Test Drive admittedly doesn't have much of one, so instead I'm going to discuss the way the game is structured. When you launch the game, you're greeted with two main options, action and career. I'm first going to talk about the career mode, which is where I spent most of my time on this playthrough. The career mode is laid out like many other racing games of the time, where you start off as the newcomer that nobody believes in to becoming the best racer in your discipline. Right after the initial loading screen, you're greeted with a message. The old car you've inherited from Grandma isn't good for much, but luckily there's an Eve of Destruction coming up. You drive Grandma's car down the road and trade it in for the only car you can afford, the Moth. And now the open world part of Test Drive opens up and is available to you. You can trade in cars at the salvage yard, repair or switch cars at your mobile home, compete in Eves, and challenge other racers at the diner. Later on, you unlock a time trial mode and upgrades for your existing cars. Let me just say this, as someone who grew up in rural America, this hub world isn't too far off from the real deal. From the long open fields to the random trailer home or junkyards scattered around, it's accurate. Getting back to the game, earning money in Test Drive isn't too difficult, whether it be through challenges, time trials, or Eves. Challenges involve you putting up a preset bet amount, then racing to beat your opponent. Whoever wins takes the entire pot. Time trials unlock a bit later into the career mode, like I said earlier, but just involve you driving through one of two courses under the set time limit. Just like the challenges, you put up an amount of money, and if you pass the course, you take the pot. Eves are where you'll be spending the majority of your time in Test Drive Eve of Destruction, and they're the only way that you're able to progress the story. Think of Eves like going down to your local racetrack for an evening. You get an entire laundry list of events, and at the end of the night, a winner is crowned. Eves feature a ton of different events, and I'd like to go ahead and talk about those now. So in addition to your standard oval racing that's popular here in America, there's all kinds of other crazy racing events. There's figure 8 racing, where the racing lines cross in the middle and you have to avoid traffic perpendicular to you. Even more insane is when they add a ramp to the middle. This mode is where you'll see most of the big hits in Test Drive. I love how the game recognizes them and goes into this slow-mo 360 camera. It's really silly, but I love it. Chain racing is pretty interesting too. It's just a standard oval race, but the guy behind you is linked to your car and all he does is steer. Make a sharp turn or drive in too hard and you'll spin out. I found the AI to be pretty forgiving in this mode though, and I didn't have much of an issue lapping most of the field. The car handles similarly in the trailer race mode, which is again a standard oval race, but each car is pulling a trailer behind it. The difference being that the trailer is purely dead weight and you can flip if you're too aggressive with your steering. It can get pretty chaotic with all of the trailer debris flying around, and so can the next mode, Flagpole. Flagpole is technically a race, but felt more like a demolition mode. The first lap is a standard oval lap, but on the second lap and every lap afterwards, you have to loop around each flagpole. Early on in the race, this is pure chaos, as drivers who are even seconds behind you will pile into you as you try to exit the flagpole circle. This race is more about strategy and survival more so than anything else, and that extends to the point-to-point races as well. In these, there's points on the ground that you have to drive over in a specific order. The game points a large arrow over your car to the one you're supposed to head to next. Again, early on the AI will pile into a point, and if you're not careful, they can and will total your car. There's another mode where the AI piles into you, and that's one of my favorite modes in the entire game, the whip around race. These are set on the oval, and once you get to a certain part of the track, you're expected to whip your car around quickly and head back in the opposite direction. It was always a mess at the turnaround point, with some AI not even trying to whip around and instead piling into the cars who were trying to turn. This is what I love about Test Drive Eve of Destruction, not just the carnage, but the strategy of the whole thing. Do I bring a slower, more durable car to an event and risk being left behind? Or do I bring a faster, less durable car and risk being totaled? Moving into the demolition modes, there's more to it than just being the last man standing, although there is a bonus if that car is you. One variation prioritizes destroying other cars, where another might give out double points for pushing pushing your opponents out of the arena. There's strategy at play here too, not just in your car choice, but in how you drive. See, this isn't explicitly shown in the UI or the HUD or anything, but your car takes more damage to the front and sides than it does the back. So get used to driving your car backwards into opponents if you plan to win. After every EVE, you're given your reward money and a rank based on how many points you scored in EVE, moving you up the driver rankings. First place moves you up 5 spots, second 4 spots, third 3 spots, etc. It's a cool system in all honesty. I like how you don't have to win every single EVE to progress. You can then use this money to challenge other drivers, dive into time trials, or buy new cars and upgrades for your existing cars. Test Drive Eve of Destruction features more than 20 purchasable vehicles, all with their own pros and cons. I can tell you right now, I didn't purchase every vehicle in the game, but I felt that I was smart with my money. See, buying the highest end car might not be the smartest idea in the long run, and it all depends on how you play. Each car has 3 stats that you need to familiarize yourself with: speed, handling, and durability. Speed is sort of your top speed and acceleration in one stat, handling is how grippy your car is on surfaces, and durability refers to, well, how durable your car is. I was a few hours into the game when I realized that I needed a dedicated derby car, since my race car's durability was less than ideal. I went ahead and purchased a $150 Coyote, which had poor speed and handling stats but a durability of 6, which could be upgraded to 7, much higher than my race car's durability of 4. Not only are the initial costs cheaper, but upkeep of your car is also cheaper on the lower end. See, when you take damage, that needs to be repaired, and it costs more on higher end cars. Repairing the Coyote costs me a few dollars per 5 percentage points, whereas a higher end car like the Gladiator might cost me hundreds for those same few percentage points of health. In addition to that, you need to be aware that you cannot fully repair your car to 100% again. As you continue to take damage and wear the car down, your max health for that car also decreases. I found that using cheaper cars allowed me to more easily scrap and replace them when needed, and selectively pick the events that I entered my more expensive cars into. Sure, sometimes you'll make mistakes and pick the wrong car for an event, but it happens, and it's not impossible for you to still win the overall EVE. The cars in Test Drive Eve of Destruction are all unique. Sure, they might not sound like the beefy, straight-pipe monsters we hear at the racetrack, but their statistics make for a different driving experience from one car to another. The physics are excellent, with each car oversteering and requiring countersteering to maintain optimal speed through the corners. Faster cars will require sharper inputs. Cars aren't glued to the ground and require your full attention. I love the sound of metal crunching on metal in the game. It's visceral and violent. Fenders, quarter panels, bumpers, hoods, and eventually even wheels and tires will fly off of cars and throw debris into the track. Objects around the map like hay bales and tractor tires will also litter the map, so the optimal line isn't always available to you. The game's immersion isn't just limited to that on-track action either. As a PA announcer, you can barely hear Bark's one-liners and driver updates over the track speakers. If you've ever been to your local racetrack, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's so realistic and something that I think even modern games get wrong. Even with all of these cars and objects, Test Drive for the most part maintains its smooth frame rate and is a very playable game even on real hardware like I'm showing here in the video. In addition to the previously mentioned career mode, there's also an action selection which allows you to set up your own events with the cars and tracks you've unlocked, as well as dares. Dares are preset challenges that are programmed in the game where they give you a specific car to complete a race, derby, or whatever else they have you doing. It's pretty fun, especially after you've completed the career mode and need something else to do. A few cars that I never got to drive in the career mode appeared here, and that was really cool. With all of the good out of the way, what did I not like about Test Drive Eve of Destruction? Well, I briefly mentioned earlier how the cars don't sound as great as I wish they did, and while that is true, it pales in comparison to the soundtrack on offer here. Before you scroll down to type a nasty comment, let me explain. So, the game features songs from the likes of Rob Zombie, Sum 41, Hoobastank, Thrice, Thursday. I'm a fan of all these bands, that's not the issue. The problem here isn't the selection of bands or songs, but instead the total number of them. Test Drive Eve of Destruction has 13 licensed songs in total. That's it. By comparison, Burnout 3 Takedown has 44. The original Flat Out has 37. Need for Speed Underground has 26. You get the idea. By the end of my playthrough, I had to turn the music off. I just couldn't do it anymore. I don't know if Atari's budget at the time didn't allow for more licensed music or what, but all I know is that it's repetitive, grating, and loses its charm early on in the playthrough. Another thing I didn't care for much was the paint booth, which allows you to draw onto your car with different colored paints. What disappointed me here was the fact that I couldn't change the base coat of my car. I could only use this brush tool to draw on different body panels. You also can't draw on certain body panels. I wasn't able to even draw on the roof like I wanted to. It's a strangely limited feature that ultimately doesn't affect the gameplay, but I figured that I should bring it up anyways. All in all, Test Drive Eve of Destruction is a wonderful game that took me back to a simpler time in racing games. There was no need for cringy dialogue, DLC locked behind paywalls, or shoehorned in online modes. The gameplay and its gameplay loop were enough to keep you engaged, and ultimately the game has aged wonderfully as a result. It might not stand up to its modern competitors like Wreckfest, but it's definitely worth checking out. And as we wind this video down, today's end of video question is this. What's your favorite racing game from this era? It can be any platform, any series. I would love to read your responses. My name is NoMooreMercy. Thank you all so much for watching the video. As always, have a good one.